Thank you for tuning in to WDRB Media, the voice of the community. The only station giving you double the information and inspiration. You're listening to the Perky Radio Show, and I'm your host, David M. Frankel. Today, my guest is Joseph Cofield. He is the founder of Joseph Cofield Insurance and Financial Services. Welcome, Joseph.
Hey, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks for joining us. So, as we start every show with the same question, why? Joseph, why did you get into the financial field? Why did you decide to do it for yourself? I know a lot of people go work for someone for a period of time, but you're like, you know what? I'm going to do it myself. Let's do it, and people can come work for me. What made you get into that industry?
Oh, fantastic. Well, it's a long story, but it's really short. I'll give you the short part first, and then I may have time to give you the long version.
Okay, very good.
My background is in mental health and in education, and so what happened in 2015, my 2014, my first son was born.
Okay.
My wife and I decided to have children late. So we had our first son, and I was working at a social service agency as a director, and our schedules were just so hectic. Like we were burning on both ends, and so we just couldn't figure out how to manage this thing. And so I decided to, step out and find a job that gives me more flexibility. Also, I can earn a decent living. Right. And my oldest brother, he's been in the insurance business for years. And so I said, let me try it out. I got into the business, and oh wow, I mean, it was really amazing just to get into business, and then you find out that you know what. There's a lot that I need to learn. I mean, sure. My wife and I, we're both professionals and have, people would consider us to be pretty educated, and we thought we had a great portfolio. Well, when you learn, you learn more, you tend to do a little bit better.
Sure.
And so, I initially approached the business from the perspective of how do I help reposition our family so I can transfer generational wealth.
Okay.
And so taking that approach has, really helped launch my business to a place where personal finance, I should say, to a place where I feel pretty confident where we are, and I'm I'm one of those people who like to share information. So I want to make sure, if our family is doing well, then I want to share what I have, and I want your family to be better off. Not it's not that I know everything, but I work really hard to learn as much as I can, so that way I can be better each day.
Excellent. That brings me to several questions. I guess the first one will be, you went to school for psychology?
Right. My undergrad degree is in psychology. I have a master's degree in counseling.
Okay.
Shortly after finishing up my degree in counseling, I passed the licensure exam and was on my way to finish up that process. And this was in 2005. Okay. And that came to a screeching halt. So I ended up in education.
Okay.
And I spent my wife and I, we were in Winston-Salem. My wife was in med school, and and I had finished grad school, and I guess in my mind I wanted something, some initials and certifications that offer me flexibility. And so I really enjoyed helping children and families.
Okay. And
so with my degree and my experience, I chose to pursue working with students who were considered to be seriously emotionally, behaviorally disturbed. Okay, or those who are in the education field, they know BED or SED, and so this was the population I worked with for 6 years, 3 years in Winston-Salem and 3 years here in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools, and it's just been an amazing roller coaster ride, and I've really enjoyed my experience. But, here I am now, right. And I would love, certainly share more about finance. But, there's just so much information to give.
But having a psychology background, right. Having an education background, you put all those together and launched your own financial business as a result.
Right.
So help me understand, and I think a lot of people consider getting into the financial world, but so much of it's commission only. Right. So much of it you have to build your own client base. Right. It's intimidating.
Right.
So how did you go from that background to suddenly like I'm going to start from scratch
Right.
and build a financial business? How hard was that? Tell the audience, because I think a lot of people know it's going to be hard,
Right.
and they're just afraid to take that leap of faith. So how
Right.
did you?
Right.
Did you have money in the bank set aside so you could kind of coast for 3 months or 6 months, or how did you? And were there some low points that you want to share with the audience that you weren't sure if you made the right choice, you're going to go back to psychology and work with the students again?
Right.
Or once you committed, you were all in? Kind of give us a little sense of what that transition was like. Because I think a lot of people watching or listening want to make that transition, but that transition scares the heck out of them.
Okay. Now, I can tell you, yes, it is an uphill battle in the financial service industry. And I think I'm so thankful for my wife that she has my wife, she's a physician, so it really helped that she was making some, a pretty decent income, and we really didn't need my paycheck. So so that was really helpful. So
tip number one, marry a physician. Okay. Tip number two.
Right. So most people won't find themselves in that situation, but there are ways that you can get into the industry, and it really requires that you focus, and you have to be a great salesperson. And I will tell you that I am the worst salesperson.
Okay.
I love to educate. And over the past few years, I've learned that people like to be sold, and they don't really like to be educated. I mean, and it's just really, I know it sounds kind of strange, and some people may take offense to that, but that's just what I found in the business, is that you can try to educate someone, and a lot of times information that you give people, it goes against conventional wisdom. So if it goes against conventional wisdom, we just have a hard time receiving it. But yeah, the business, I started out in the senior market, and going into the senior market, there's some great opportunities there.
Sure.
If you're focused on selling like final expense insurance policies, and you want to talk to 65, 70-year-old people who are scared, and they just want a little policy to make sure they're properly buried. You can do that. You can do well in business. But for me, it became more of a challenge. It became a challenge for me when I saw the amount of money that people are paying a month in monthly premiums for those small policies.
Sure.
And it really prompted me to focus on educating younger and healthier people, so that way they're not put in that position to pay some excessive amount of money on monthly premiums.
Sure. And I think at some point you must feel bad for them if they have to have a premium that's not affordable for them, but they need it because they know that as they get older, that the probability gets higher, and you don't want to have no insurance, but the insurance that we get at such a late age in life is so expensive.
Exactly.
So it's interesting that you change gears, because that's where you can really make the biggest impact. Is don't take care of them at the very end when there's not much you can do. You can't change the rates. You're just there to assess the rates.
Exactly.
But if you can help them earlier, I'm sure that's there's a little more reassurance that, hey, I'm really helping people because I'm going to prevent them from being in the situation that the people you initially started working with were in.
Right.
Is that correct?
Exactly. And the younger you are, you have so many options. And really, the way you would look at life insurance is totally different when you're 25, 35, or 40. And really, your focus shouldn't, well, in my opinion, it should not be focused on the death benefit. When you're young, you should be focused on living benefits.
Sure.
And so you can have a life insurance policy and really have some great living benefits. And now you can maximize that policy. And so that is something that, when I look at the position that our seniors are in, and there are a few things that they can do, but it require like bringing all stakeholders into the picture, and most people are just so scared just to even involve people into that decision-making process, even discuss death, and so it becomes really challenging. So for me, and I apologize to those who are in the insurance field that I was a coward, that I could not focus my efforts on that population, but it really, when you're looking at just preparing for life, and preparing your finances and getting things in order, you really have to focus on living benefits.
And I would think, when you first start out to deal with the senior crowd, it's tough because they need it the most,
Right.
but they also have most likely to lower the budgets.
Right.
And it breaks your heart, I'm sure, in situations where they know that they're sick or they know that they need benefits, and there's just no way they can afford it.
Right.
And then you flip the side and you go to the 25 to 35 who think they'll never die,
Right.
and therefore even if it was $1 a day, it just they don't see value. They just spend $1 on a cup of coffee. They rather spend that dollar somewhere else.
Right.
Nothing against a cup of coffee. Our next guest is a coffee guy.
Right.
But it's just important. You have two tough segments.
Right.
It's different if you have this senior segment that's prepared. It's like, oh, I don't need you. I'm good. I already put myself in a good place 20 years ago.
Right.
That's not your customer.
Right.
You're looking for the customer that wasn't able to afford things when they were younger, and now they need it more than they want it, and they can't have it, or it's going to take a lot out of their budget if they could have it.
Well,
so how do you handle some of those situations where you're going into someone's home, I assume, where they're coming into your office, and you want to help them, but they just can't, based on their budget, based on their income, they just can't afford the insurance they need. How do you get through that? Is there payment plans? Is there options out there? Help those that are listening or watching that are over 65 and unfortunately didn't have the luxury of having a great health insurance, life insurance plan. Remember, they did have one through their employer and unfortunately have been laid off recently. That happens to a lot of people. And that life insurance plan now has lapsed, or they just couldn't continue to make the payments without the company's support and splitting it. What can they do now? What's their best option moving forward?
The best option, in my opinion, is actually, as I mentioned before, bringing in all stakeholders. Because if you're not adequately insured, what do you have to do? People are calling on family members. Okay, and so if family members are going to be called on at the time of someone's untimely passing, then they can be called upon while the person is still living.
I see. Okay.
Okay, and they can actually get insurance on their loved one. So, I would rather pay, $1,000 over the course of that remaining years of that person's life for a life insurance policy than when they pass away. Now I have to come up with $10,000.
Makes sense. So that's a great advice. Is that if you're older and you're in this position, which hopefully you're not, but if you are, don't panic. But reach out to your family and say, hey, I really don't want to burden you upon my passing. So if everyone can pitch in a little bit each month, each year, and help me with a life insurance policy. That way all the burial and all my assets and everything can be handled properly without everyone stressing. And because obviously anyone that doesn't have a will or doesn't have their finances in order, it just becomes a very stressful departure.
Right.
And you don't want that to be for your loved ones as you leave.
Right.
You want it to be everything thought out, everything planned, so that they can prevent a lot of stress if they come together and each chip in.
Right.
Which is great.
And here's another strategy that people don't oftentimes consider is that if you're taking inventory of your assets, I've seen people who have an old car just laying around. If you just sold that car and, if you weren't going to do anything with it, now you can go and purchase a single premium life insurance policy. And you're going to get a larger death benefit. So, imagine if you got, if you're able to get $2,000 for a car. It's possible that you can now purchase, say, a $6,000 life insurance policy. So you take a $2,000 depreciating asset, and now you have $6,000. That's a great rate of return.
It is a great rate of return.
Okay, and you can do that for seniors. You can do it for yourself. And they have policies where if you if you're in your younger years and you want to sell a property or something like that, you can actually do put down a single premium. And I have one carrier where they will stretch that premium over a period of time. So that way that contract, the life insurance contract, will not become a modified endowment contract where they treat, like the IRS, they treat it like a 401k. So because insurance is a very efficient investment tool. Okay. And so if you're using insurance and say you bought a single premium policy, you stretch that money out over a period of time. Now you just give you an example, $100,000 house, sell it, put in a policy. 10 years later, let's say 20 years later, you have $200,000.
Right.
Okay. You have $200,000 that you can draw down tax free.
That's true.
Okay. Versus having $100,000 that you have to pay taxes on. Okay, so it's I mean there are just so many strategies that you can use, and I can go through a lot of different scenarios, and so it just really requires that someone you sit down with a professional, and in my I would suggest that you sit down with a independent broker,
Okay.
such as myself, someone who's not a captive agent. Okay, because if I'm a captive agent, say I'm selling for one of the XYZ companies. I'm really going to sell you what they have to offer, and I'm going to steer you, and I'm going to tell you why they're such a great company.
Right.
Now, as an independent broker, I want to steer you towards the best product that works for you.
I see.
Okay, and one size doesn't fit all. Okay, and so as I was sharing with someone earlier today, I mean, even when you get into using annuities, things like that. I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, you will be amazed what this industry, what this world is like. It's like a parallel universe, so to speak, because it requires that you actually become more mindful of where your money is going. So again, I talked about how, when you're preparing for your end of years, what I call retirement protection, you should focus on living benefits.
Makes sense.
Okay. And so that goes a little bit beyond preparing for a death, or because as I mentioned to you before, why I got into business, I want to transfer wealth to my children's children.
Right.
Okay. And insurance is a very efficient product that you can transfer wealth to your children's children.
Excellent. Help me understand, help the viewers and listeners understand, how can they get a hold of you? How can they have a consultation with you? What's a good way to get a hold of you? Is there a website,
Yes.
social media?
Mm-hmm.
Can
Okay.
you share some of that information for us?
Well, certainly. You can find me at www.jcofield, that's JCOFIELD, insurance.com. That's jcofieldinsurance.com. And you can also reach me, just call me on my cell phone. Text me, 704-572-0311. Don't send me any inappropriate pictures. but certainly you're welcome to call, text, send me a smoke screen, and I would love to sit down and talk with you. And I am one. I will tell you, I'm not a high pressure salesman. I'm a horrible salesman. I like to educate.
Right.
I love to educate, and love to give you some information. And if I can't help you, I will tell you I can't help you.
Right.
And I try to do what I can. And so my passion is I want people to be better off.
Right. Well, I think a lot of it is just education. And
Right.
you mentioned earlier people want to be sold. There's a real fine line there. I think people want the education, but then once they have the education, as human beings, we want to process everything.
Mm-hmm.
We want to get information from you and from you and from you and from you. And now you have so much information, you don't know where to begin to process it all.
Exactly.
So having the desire and a little sales skill to ask for the close, I think is helpful, because now you have the information you need. I'm the right guy to help you.
Right.
I've listened to you. I understand what you need.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go ahead and move forward.
Right.
And you have to have that ability in you to ask for the sale.
Right.
Otherwise, they are going to get more information, and then they're going to come right back to you initially like, well, I had the best with Joseph.
Right.
He's seen the most sincere. He's seen the most genuine. And he's seen to listen the best. But again, when they're just gathering information, sometimes that's the mode they're in.
Right.
So sometimes it's hard for people to go from the gathering information mode to the decision mode.
Right.
And that's where the salesmanship comes in. And no one wants to be salesy, but at the same time, you at least want to ask the sale once or twice to see if they have the right information, they have a gut feeling that's good enough to move forward with you.
Absolutely.
But it's a fine line. It's challenging. And I think, I disagree a little bit. I don't think people want to be sold, but I think they need to be sold at
Right.
times,
Yeah.
because otherwise they get into analysis paralysis when it comes to information.
Right.
So it's such a fine line between the salesman world nowadays, and with everything, shopping on Amazon and shopping in stores, everyone's afraid to help anybody in the stores anymore. They're going to just go online, click, and be done.
Exactly.
They have the power of purchasing without being sold, so to speak. They read descriptions, they read reviews. Everything's a soft sale.
Right.
So it does the old school in-home sales or in-office sales. That industry shifted a lot.
Right.
Because people don't want to be sold, but they need to be sold at times. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense, and I would like to add that I don't, when I look at my inability or my challenges with that close, it's not them, it's not my customer. I do realize it is me. it is me,
And that's okay.
and so And I take ownership, and that was one of the things that I learned when I was in the classroom.
Right.
It was that because we were we were given a daunting task to move students that were several grade levels behind, and I was expected to get them on grade level in spite of their behavior challenges, their psychological issues, and the lack of support, whatever. I had to move these students.
Right.
And so it's the same thing with anything. I take full ownership. I mean, so I try my best to do what I can and to be what I need to be for you.
Right.
However, I will not push anyone into anything.
It was good. And I think people don't want to be pushed, for sure.
Right.
They neither want to, they don't want to be pushed. But I would also assume that because your education background, it also gives you a whole new appreciation for what teachers go through on a daily basis, especially with your son. At least one son.
You have two now.
You have two now.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have two boys in the public school system. You have an appreciation for the teachers go through and the juggling they have to go through and all the different curriculums they have to push through because everyone's on a different level.
Right.
And how you get each child to the next level, even though they come in at different levels, is very challenging. So,
Absolutely.
My heart goes out to all the teachers that are out there.
Oh, wow.
The communication I get from my kids' teachers, and it's incredible what they can juggle and what they get paid to do and what they do. It's not even paid for.
Right.
But they do it because they love teaching.
You have to love teaching. Your heart has to be in it, otherwise you will burn out.
You will.
You will burn out.
Right, you can love it as much as you want.
Yeah.
So again, today's guest is Joseph Cofield. He is the founder of Joseph Cofield Insurance and Financial Services. His website is jcofieldinsurance.com. Did I get that right?
That's correct.
He said you could also text him on his cell phone, 704
572-0311.
0311. Good, because I had it written down wrong. I don't want to mix people up. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you.
I hope everyone's a little more informed now about their life insurance. And I'm sure all of us know someone that needs life insurance or they thought about it, they keep putting it off. Well, no better day than today. And the more you get, once it's in place and set up, it's just a world of relief. You don't have to worry about it anymore, and everything's in order, not only for yourself, but also for your family. And we'll be right back. You're listening to the Perky Collar Radio Show. We'll see you shortly.